this is Bernie from Stampin' Up and welcome to my card tutorial for this beautiful Funfold card. You are what sunshine feels like. In this tutorial I will be stepping you through step by step how to make this beautiful card, and you will find that it is not that difficult once you've got all the bits and pieces that you will need. So for this card, you are going to need some basic cardstock. I have chosen Stampin' Up's thick basic white. You will need some designer series paper. For that, I have used the Delicate Desert paper in the mini catalogue that is currently available from January to April 2023. However, if you do not have this exact paper, you can use anything that you have in your stash. I would also suggest that you have a beautiful focal stamp set for your card, and you are going to need a sentiment as well as some or other kind of embellishment. For this I've used the Stampin' Up gold trim, and I've also used the embellishments that part of the Delicate Desert, and they are called the gold faceted adhesive backed sequins. You will need one sheet of A4 cardstock, and I do suggest for your base cards that you use a thick cardstock base so that your cards can sit nice and secure rather than fall over. As they're going to have many layers on them, you will want to make sure that you use a sturdy cardstock. And if you are not sure of what to use, you are welcome to click on the link in the description box below this video, and there is a link there to my online shop where you can purchase from me if you are living within New Zealand. So I will set this card to the side and we will be referring to it from time to time. So in order to make this card, you are going to need a paper trimmer as well as a form of a scoring tool. So I will show you what I like to use, but I prefer to use my paper scorer tool. So for the first step, you're going to need a piece of A4 cardstock, and we are going to cut this literally in half on the short end, and we will cut this at 4 1/8 of an inch by 11 1/2, and I will use my paper trimmer to show you how easy it is and how to find your measurement. So I like to use the Stampin' Up paper trimmer, and the reason I do is that it has an extendable arm, so it goes all the way out to 17 inches, and it can fold back to 6 inches. So if you're just making cards and you don't need a large surface, then this is perfect. It's also perfect for somebody that may need to use it for scrapbooking, where they are using larger pieces. So if you are looking at 4 inches, as you can see on the paper trimmer, there are increments of quarters as well as increments of eighths, as well as increments of 16ths of an inch. So when I instruct you to cut at 4 1/8, the easiest way is to go backwards when you are learning. So find your 4, find halfway, which is half, then find a quarter, and then you will find half of that is an eighth. And that is the easiest way in the beginning. So we're going to place the paper up against the edge and making sure that it's flush against the edge so that you will not cut a skew line. I'm finding my 4, I'm going to a half, I'm coming back to a quarter, and then I'm coming back one more time to 1/8. I'm placing my guide down flush, and I'm using my blade to cut a straight line. And now I have some spare that I can make another card with. I'm releasing the guide and picking up my cardstock and then turning it to the landscape view. Now you are going to need to cut for this card, you're going to need to cut a teeny tiny bit off, and I will show you again how easy it is. So finding my measurement, I need to cut at 11 and a half. So 11 and a half is over there. So I now place my paper where I want to be where I want it to be the final measurement, making sure it is nice and flush against the top. I place my guard down, my rail down, and bringing my paper trimmer up, I cut off the teeny tiny bit that is extra. Now you can keep that or you can dispose of that. Now that is all the cutting that we need to do for the base. This is called a card base, and this will form this exterior part of the card. We now need to score this at various measurements. So I'm going to bring in my scoring tool. Placing your card on landscape at its fullest, I prefer to use the paper scoring tool, and again, if you'd like to get yourself a copy, there is a link to that below in my online store. So find 3, we need to score at 3 3/4. So that is 3 1/2. The next line is 3 3/4. Place a scoring tool in there and just draw a line down. You always start from the left and work to the right. The next measurement is 7 1/2. So I'm finding 7 1/2 and I'm scoring down. And the last measurement is 9 1/2, and I'm putting my scoring tool in there, and I now have my card scored, which is going to form the base of my Funfold. Now the next thing you're going to need to do is to use a bone folder to create your folds. This is going to be the front of the card. So I suggest you take the 2 shorter folds and put them towards you and burnish it. So burnishing is making sure those fibers are nice and strong. And that's going to go up like that. Oops. That was just my paper folder that fell. And that is going to fold over like that. So here you have your base of your card. So you've folded it towards you, away from you, up and down. So that is going to form the base of your card. Now we need to cut the strip that is going to form the back by 8 1/4. So I will just move that to the side, and we are going to go to 8 1/4. So 8 1/4, and that is then scored at 5 1/2. Now I'm going to show you a little tip that if you don't have a scoring tool, you can use your paper trimmer for the same thing. So we need to score this at 5 1/2. So we'll find 5, we'll find 5 1/2. And if you have a paper trimmer from Stampin' Up, you will have a scoring tool, a blade in it. I've taken mine out because it fell, it just kept falling out. So you'll just need to use your scoring blade, which will look like this. Let me just get it out for you. It will look like this, as there's no blade in it, and you will just create a fold at 5 1/2. So now we have finished cutting, and we can also just burnish this fold. All right, now that you've done all your burnishing, we are now going to glue your paper choice onto your cardstock. So I have used some more paper in the same suite, and I'm just showing you. You can do something completely different if you don't have the identical paper. So I cut these. So this piece is 2 by 5 1/4, which is the piece that I cut, thinking that I had given you the measurements for the cardstock. So that's going to go over there. So there's approximately 1/4 inch gap. So that is a 2 by 5 1/4 piece, and I cut that exactly the same as what I did on my cardstock, using the same principles. Then in this front panel, you're going to need a 4 by 1 3/4 panel, and we'll place some glue on that, and I'll just flatten that to make it easier. And then you're going to miss this piece, and we're going to glue in this inside piece. And for that, you're going to need a piece 4 inches by 1 3/4. Oh, my apologies. No, that is 3.5 inches by 4. Now, what you need to do is you need to, I've got my measurements up in front of me, but I don't have my glasses on as I'm reading them to you. Just make sure that these lines are matching up so that there's consistency there. Excellent. So now we've got this look on our card. So now what we need to do is we need to glue this panel on and attach it at the back. So what I find the easiest to do is to first glue just a little bit on the bottom here. And I eyeball where I believe it to be in the center. So I'm gluing it there. And then I'm bringing this to the back. And I'm just going to flip this over and place a little bit. I'll just get my silicone mat. Again, this is a very handy tool to have to prevent any glue going onto a surface that you don't want it to go onto. And so now I have glued this onto the front. So now I can literally just bring it over and hold it down. And with the Tombow, the glue that we use mostly in Stampin' Up, you don't need to hold it for a great length of time. So there we have a beautiful card already, and we've done very minimal effort on it. So now we're left with just some stamping to do. So for that, you're going to need some basic white cardstock and a little bit of scrap, and we're going to stamp off the beautiful desert rose that we're going to put in the center. So I have a piece of cardstock here, and I have my stamp that I'm going to use. Comes from the Desert Details stamp set, and it has some beautiful stamps, and I'm also going to use the matching die that goes with it. So these are available in a bundle. If you do want to purchase those on my online store, you can do that as well. I'm also using grey granite from the Stampin' Up range, and I love it from the Stampin' Up range. Part of the video, we're going to use a Dauber, and we're going to place, I'm just going to move my card, we are going to place ink on the stamp so that it's not too heavy and it creates a softer look. Place your stamp set down on your cardstock and release. And there you have a gorgeous gorgeous inked image, which is very soft and is not as harsh as what the inked image is. Of course, you could If you want to, you can use a harder one, but I prefer softer. While we have our ink out, I'm also going to just place a little bit of white, which is 1 3/4 by 1 1/4 inch, and I'm going to place my message. I'm going to ink it up in the same way, and I'm just going to place that here. So that's just a bit of a time saver. There we go. All right, so we've done all our stamping, and so we can pop those to the side. Now we're going to need to die cut out this image, and I like to use a little cut and emboss machine for this purpose because it's just a lot easier. So I'm just going to need to cut this out so that it will fit into my machine. And I'm using my sandwich, which is plates 1 and 3, and I'm going to use the die that corresponds with it. Just want to find that. There we go. And I actually find it a lot easier to use a post-it note. We are having a lot of rain and humidity in New Zealand where I'm recording this, and so I find if you just tear a post-it note and you just place it over the die and over where the image is, and you put your second thing on top, then that way it will make it stay in position, but it will also help that it won't get stuck on the paper, especially when it's high humidity like we are experiencing at the moment. So there you see we've cut out our image in a very quick and easy way. So that is using the die, the cut and emboss machine. Now to add the sparkle, as you can see there is sparkle on my rose, I used some Stella. So Stella is like a glitter brush, and I just opened it up and I just went over it. And just be careful that when you press it out that it doesn't come out, and if it does, just use a tissue to mop up any bits that you may miss. And we can set that to the side just to get that dry for a little bit. Okay, so now we are getting ready to assemble this gorgeous card. So I'm going to use some dimensionals, and I'm going to pop them at the back of my card, and I'm using a quick take your pick tool. Now this is quite handy. It's got a sharp side there, and it can reverse and go in there to screw on, and it also has a little putty side on this side that can actually pick up embellishments if you struggle to do that. So I'm just picking up the paper, sticking it on with my take your pick tool. This is a very handy little tool, and I'm lifting up the release paper like that, and I'm going to get rid of that and pop my flower in position about over there. It's where I want it. Excellent. Now you're probably wondering, how did I get these gorgeous threads over here? Well, that's pretty simple to do. So you can either use your gold trim, which I'm going to use, or you can use silver trim here as well, but I'm going to stick with the gold. So what you need to do is you just cut yourself some gold trim, and you will see in the middle there is a little tube that comes out. Just pull that out, and now you can release these little fibers. And what I do is I just pull them like that. And as you pull them, they are nice and curly. There we go. So now we have a whole lot lying around. So what I did was I just picked up with my take your pick. I used some glue dots. So I picked up a glue dot like this, and I picked up 2 fibers and I tucked them in underneath, and we'll work on them shortly to tidy them up. So I picked up another one and picked it up and picked it up. So there were about 2, and stuck it in under there and pressed it down and picked it up again and picked it up. So I've got 2 there. I just want to come in underneath. That one's not underneath. And sometimes you may just need to tuck them under like that. And one last one. Picked it up and stuck it in. Now this looks like a little bit like a spider web, so now we're just going to trim them off so that they are looking a little bit decent. And here you just need to really just use your common sense, really. Some of these I might just add. And this is where this tool is really helpful, because you just pick that up and stick that in where it's on a glue dot. And pick that up, pick that up, pick that up, and just add it in there. So I'm just adding that into the bits. And I'm just going to trim that off. Okay, and I might actually just do one more glue dot and pick up those other little scraps. So I'm going to pick all these little bits up. I'm using my glue dot to do that, and I'm going to go in under the petal, going under the petal so that it looks a bit more authentic. Okay, so just clear that all away. Now we just need to do our sentiment, and for that I used a blending brush with just a bit of old ink on it, and I just went over it with some grey, and then I used my old scissor, my paper scissor, and I just roughed up the edges like this. Okay, so you're just rubbing it with your scissor towards the paper, and you breaking those fibers, and you really giving it a nice rough look. Brilliant. And now you can just glue this down, place it in position, and the last thing we need to do is we need to add some gorgeous sentiments, and I'm going to take that from this little embellishments, and I'm going to pick up one over here. Of course, these are looking a little bit different to my previous card, and they always do. And one last one. Fantastic. And there we have. We're almost done. We've got the outside done. So now we just need to do the inside of the card. So we're going to glue that onto the card face,
And your white is going to be 3 1/4 by 3 3/4. And the I've used soft succulent for my cardstock, 4 by 3 1/2. And so that's going in there, and that's going in here. So that's going to come in here, inside. And the last thing I wanted to do was I used the die in the same die that I used to cut out the flowers. In there is this gorgeous die, and I'm just going to pop that in at the bottom to create some interest. And there you have your stunning, stunning, stunning card. Well done. You have just created yourself a gorgeous Funfold card that you can use with whatever paper you have and with whatever stamps you have. I hope you've enjoyed that, and please do look out for my other tutorials that are on my blog. Thank you for visiting me, and thank you for showing interest in a small business. I really do appreciate it. Bye.